رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام.
Alhamdulillah, it's always good to come back to Nili. Alhamdulillah, been here many times before, and it's a good, blessed masjid, mashallah, and blessed community. So today, as Brother Asif mentioned, inshallah, I'm going to be talking and sharing the story of Mus'ab ibn Umayr. And Mus'ab ibn Umayr is a companion that I think many of us might have heard his name. Yes, how many people have heard the name Mus'ab ibn Umayr? You've all heard it today because he introduced it. But how many of us know about his story? A few of us, alhamdulillah, have heard his story, and maybe growing up, maybe at madrasa, etc., or different schools and that we went to, Islamic schools. His story is a very famous story, and it's a story of sacrifice. But before we get on to his story, I just want to share a few words when it comes to studying the lives of these companions and who these companions were. You know, from the great blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, we often think of blessings of Allah as things that He's given us directly. Yes, when we think of blessings, we might think of wealth, we might think of health, family. And these are, of course, from the greatest blessings of Allah. But He has also blessed us in other ways. And from those blessings is that He sent a messenger. Yes, He sent so as I was mentioning, from the other blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that He sent for us or to us, to mankind, a messenger to show us how to live on this earth. This is from the greatest blessings of Allah, that He sent the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the final messenger. But the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam was also surrounded by exceptional people. Yes, he was surrounded by what we know today as his companions. They became his companions. And you know, these were chosen individuals. Yes, it wasn't by coincidence that you know they were the ones who were with the Prophet ﷺ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that Allahu a'lamu haythu yaj'alu risalata, that Allah knows best where to place His message, who to give His message to. Yeah, from the prophets. Ibn al-Qayyim, when he gave his tafsir of this ayah, he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best where or who to send as a messenger, and He also knows best that who should be accompanying that messenger. And He chose those who would accompany the messengers. So these companions that we talk about today, they were specific individuals chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accompany the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And they had some exceptional qualities. Yes, they were some, you know, when you one statement really says it all. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ. You know, that Allah is pleased with them and they are pleased with Allah. And that should say all that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with this group of individuals. Now, when in our own lives, when we get praised, or if our parents are pleased with us, we get happy. Yes, if our boss at work is pleased with us, we get happy. If our teacher or head teacher, whoever it might be, is pleased, you get happy. Yes, you feel a sense of joy and happiness that this person is pleased with me, because that person is of importance to you. Subhanallah, imagine that Allah is pleased with you. That Allah has said that He is pleased with these people. So it's very important that we try to understand that what did these qualities did these people embody that allowed them to receive this great reward, that Allah to be pleased with them. And there are certain qualities that they had, certain characteristics that they had in their lives that we should try to implement within our own lives in order for us to, inshallah, also achieve the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of those key qualities that you find in the companions is the quality of sacrifice. The quality of sacrifice. They did tadhiyah, that they sacrificed everything they had for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Mus'ab ibn Umayr is a classic example of that. Radiyallahu anhu. One statement I just want to share with you, a statement of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud before we get on to the story of Mus'ab ibn Umayr. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said, and he was obviously a companion, he said that whoever among you wishes to follow someone, let him follow the one who has died. For the one who is still alive is not safe from fitna. And we've heard this statement, I'm sure, over the last few months many times, because of what's going on in the dawah scene, etc. That we should follow the example of those who have passed on, i.e. the prophets, the companions, that they are our role models, they are our guides. And then he goes on to say that the companions of the Prophet ﷺ were the best of this ummah. They were the best of this ummah. The most righteous of hearts, and the deepest in knowledge, and the most straightforward people, whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose to accompany His Prophet and establish His religion. So acknowledge their virtue and follow in their footsteps, and adhere much as you can to their morals and religion, for they were following right guidance. This is, subhanAllah, a beautiful statement from Abdullah bin Mas'ud when he talks about the virtue of the companions. That these people were the best of this ummah. And of course we know the Prophet ﷺ, he said, خَيْرُ النَّاسِ قَرْنِي ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ. That the best of all people are my generation, my companions, those who are with me. Yes, they were the people who accompanied the Prophet ﷺ. They are the best, and then those who come after them and those who come after them. In general, yes, talking about a general group of people. These were the best of all people. And he says that they were very straightforward. Yes, the companions were very straightforward, simple people, straightforward. None of this two sides to them, none of this, what we see today. They were very straightforward in their approach. And he says that they had the deepest knowledge. And one of our teachers, he said that, look at the words of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. He said that the companions had the deepest knowledge. He didn't say that they had the most knowledge. He said there might have been people after the companions who had more knowledge than the companions. Yes, so Imam Bukhari, how many hadith did Imam Bukhari know? Yes, in comparison to some of the companions who maybe didn't know those ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ. But the companions, they lived those ahadith. They really understood this religion. Yes, so they had deep knowledge. And then he mentions that Allah chose them to accompany the Prophet and establish this religion. And that's what they did. In the farewell sermon, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, take this now to those who are not present. After he delivers that whole sermon, yes, and he talks about some of the main principles and points of our religion, he then tells the companions that take this now and spread it. Yes, take it. And the companions, they spread it. And today, subhanAllah, 1400 years later, we are still talking about that farewell sermon and the principles that the Prophet ﷺ taught. Okay, so who was Mus'ab ibn Umayr? Mus'ab ibn Umayr was born 38 years before the Hijrah. Okay, so he was younger than the Prophet ﷺ, and he was born 38 years before the Hijrah. Now he grew up in a life of affluence. Yes, his parents were very rich. Okay, so you think about this young man, he's got it all. Yeah, you're talking about Makkah at that time. He was the richest from the richest of the rich. Very nice lifestyle. MashaAllah, his parents took care of him. He wore the most expensive clothes. Yes, he had the tailor-made clothes in those days. Yes, which was the highest form of affluence you could have. They would say that in some of the books that talk about his seerah, they mention that he would have shoes brought to him from Yemen. Yes, the shoes would come, special shoes for the elite, and these are the shoes that Mus'ab ibn Umayr would wear. So as a young man, he had a very cushy life. Yes, he had it all. Everything was going well for him, and he was also very well respected. He was a very handsome young man, respected. The Quraysh, the leaders of the Quraysh, they even adored him because he was somebody, mashallah, of wealth, and he was also somebody of intelligence. Yeah, so even as a young man, he would get invited to the meetings of the chiefs of Quraysh. They would call him in, that come, sit with us, and because he was a person of insight and knowledge and wisdom. And like I said, so he had that aspect as well. So not only was he wealthy, not only did he have a great life, he also had the respect of the people. Yes, and he also had people honoring him and respecting him. And he was very good looking, and he had the fame, he had everything you could think of. And some of the narrations, it mentions that actually, when he would walk, they could smell his perfume. Yes, and in some it mentions that the woman would line up to have a look at Mus'ab ibn Umayr. That this is who Mus'ab ibn Umayr was. And of course, the whole point of narrating this story is that we learn certain lessons from his life. So I'm going to share with you at certain parts of his life lessons that we learn. So here, what do we learn? We learn that he was a man of, a man of great wealth. But even at that time of great wealth, yes, and respect that people gave him, he wasn't somebody who let the wealth enter into his heart. Yes, he wasn't somebody who looked down upon others. He was still somebody, even at that time, of noble character. Yes, which is very important. Unfortunately today, you find many of those who have been blessed with wealth, they start to think of themselves as something great and look down on others. Yes, this was not the way of Mus'ab ibn Umayr. So we know that Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he's a young man, and now the Prophet ﷺ is come out, and people are now speaking about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is coming out with this message that there's only one God, he's been sent as a prophet, etc., etc. So we all know, and we've maybe read the seerah or studied the seerah, that there was a lot of talk at that time. News is spreading, what's going on, and you have to think about Makkah at that time. It's a small place, and a lot of discussion. Everybody's talking about what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is claiming to be a prophet, etc. So obviously the Quraysh, they're learning that this is going on, and they're plotting and they're thinking, how do we discredit him, and they're calling him different names and whatnot. At that time, where would the Muslims meet? They would meet, where would they meet? In the early days. They would meet at a place called Dar al-Arqam, the house of Arqam, which was not near the Mount Safa. So they would meet there. Okay? Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he's heard what everybody's saying. He's heard what the Quraysh are saying, he's heard all of these things. He decides to go to Dar al-Arqam himself. He finds out this is where they're meeting. So he wants to go himself and satisfy his curiosity. What is this that people are saying? Let me go, find out, hear what this Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is actually saying. So here what do we learn? We learn a very important lesson. That Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he wanted to go and learn himself. He wanted to go and hear first hand, what is this message? What is going on? And he didn't wait for anybody to come with him. Yes? Often what do? When something needs to be done, we wait for somebody else to do it. Or is this person going to come with us? We'll send a message. We can't do anything by ourselves. We need somebody to hold our hand and all of this business. He relied upon people. Mus'ab ibn Umayr himself, he wants to go, find out what's going on, and he didn't. One of the brothers, he said that, there's this saying in it about those who procrastinate, that, what do they say, that the procrastinators, they say that we'll meet tomorrow. As in, the time to do the stuff's now, but they'll always put it off, they'll always try to procrastinate. But Mus'ab ibn Umayr shows us that no, you take the initiative, you go yourself. Yes, even if nobody else is coming with you, something needs to be done, you need to go find out about something, you go. And you take initiative. And that's what we should be. We should be people of initiative. People who are productive, people who are proactive. And these are from the characteristics of a Muslim. They're proactive, they don't hang around and wait about. So Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he goes. And he goes to Dar al-Arqam. He enters. And the Prophet ﷺ is teaching the small group of companions. Yes, the early Muslims. He's teaching them the Quran. Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he listens. There's a conversation that takes place between him and the Prophet ﷺ. There and then Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he accepts Islam. He accepts Islam at the hands of the Prophet ﷺ. And of course, the small group of Muslims are very happy that now Mus'ab ibn Umayr, a person of intelligence, a person of respect, a person of honor, young, this is a great person to accept Islam. So they're all very happy. When Mus'ab ibn Umayr accepted Islam, he had one fear. That fear was his mother. His mother, Khunnas bint Malik, was a very powerful woman. We already said that his parents were very wealthy, so she was wealthy, but she was also very powerful, and she was feared amongst the people. So he was worried that, how is my mother going to take this? How is my mother going to take this? But then he was thinking that this is the truth and whatnot. So he wasn't sure what to do. Should I just go and tell the people, yes, I've accepted Islam? Should I try to keep it secret? What should I do? So Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he discusses this with the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ advises him. He says, at this stage, yes, let's not rock the boat. You just go home, don't mention anything. You come back to Dar al-Arqam, we'll sit down, we'll learn, we'll study, etc., etc. You don't need to tell anybody yet. So Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he agreed. And here we learn another lesson. What lesson do we learn here? The importance of shura. The importance of shura. Of consulting others. Yes, consulting others. People of wisdom, people of insight, our elders. Yes, on certain matters we should consult. We shouldn't always think that we know best and we're going to make the decisions. No, you find here Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he was a young man, he could have said, I'm just going to go and tell everyone. Yes, how the young youth do today. I'll make the decision. I'm just going to do it. No, I know better. This is the youth, mashallah. They're just about out of their nappies now and they're telling their parents what to do and what not to do. And this is what happens. So Mus'ab ibn Umayr, so what does this teach us? It teaches us that actually, no matter how much wealth, respect, honor the people give you, there's always people that you should go back to, that you should refer to, that you should take consultation from. And the Prophet himself taught us this. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You find that, even Allah in the Quran, he says, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ, that take shura with them. The Prophet ﷺ is told to take shura. Yes, the Prophet ﷺ, when it came to the issue of the adhan, he took shura. When it came to the issue of the captives of Badr, he took shura. And many times he took shura with the companions. Yes, discuss things to get their point of view. So here we find that it's very important, even for us, when we're making decisions, especially important decisions, we discuss it. We take shura from those that we respect. And from those who have knowledge in that issue that you want to take shura from. And it's not that you have to go to this one person for absolutely everything. One of our teachers, he said, he's a sheikh. And he goes, people are coming to me asking me which car I should buy and whatnot. He goes, how do I know about cars? And you go find somebody who knows about cars and he'll tell you which car to buy. People think that this guy's going to tell me everything. No, people have their fields. You go to a sheikh for religious knowledge. And you remember that sheikh might not know about which car is better than which car. So you go and speak to somebody who knows about cars. Nice. So we should go to the right people when it comes to taking shura as well. So Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he agrees and then he goes home and whatnot, and over a period of time he starts to come to Dar al-Arqam. But as you know, Makkah is a small place. News is, people are watching each other, what they're doing, who's going to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who's not. And they see that Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he's going to Dar al-Arqam a few times, and they spot him on 2 occasions that he's going to Dar al-Arqam. So news starts to spread that Mus'ab has accepted Islam. Yes, the news starts to spread. Mus'ab's accepted Islam. So his mother calls him. Yes, and we already said that his mother was, somebody who he feared. Yeah? So she calls him and says that this is what I've heard, that you've accepted Islam. Is this true? Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he says, yes, I've accepted Islam. And the chiefs of the Quraysh are also there. So this is a gathering where the chiefs of Quraysh are there, his mother's there, and they begin to question him about Islam. Now at that point, he could have crumbled. Yes, pressure is going to be now applied. Yes, he could have easily said that, no, I don't know, people are just making it up, whatnot. He could have said that. But Mus'ab ibn Umayr was firm in his belief. And he said, now's the time, now I will. Openly say that, yes, I've accepted Islam, and he recited some ayat of the Quran. And this teaches us another lesson. Yes, that, when it's time to be firm in your faith, yes, and you're questioned about your faith, you have to stand up. Yes, it's not a time to cower away. Today we find that many Muslims will be embarrassed of their faith. Yes, Islam is under the spotlight. So the easiest thing to do is what? Just pretend anyway, just like everybody else. No, don't talk about Islam. No, you should be confident in your faith, confident in your Islam. Yes, you don't have to hide anything. Be confident in your beliefs, as Mus'ab ibn Umayr was. So he's now reciting ayat. He's told his mother, the chiefs of the Quraysh, yes, I've accepted Islam. Obviously his mother is livid. That how could you turn your back on the way of our forefathers? Yes, this is always the way. You look at Ibrahim, you look at all of these stories, what do they say? How could you leave the way of our forefathers? Yes, and we have the same argument today. Yes, what do people say? This is what our forefathers used to do. This is what our parents, grandparents, these people have been doing this for generations. And you tell us this isn't allowed today. Who are you? What do you know? Do you know more than them? Anyway, even talking about aspects of religion. Yes, that people might be doing practices which aren't from our religion. They're cultural practices. That's when you try to explain them and people want, no. Yes, this is the way of our forefathers. This is the attitude of Jahiliyyah. This is the attitude we find at the time, right at the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam, all the way through the centuries. And again, it's still prevalent today. So Mus'ab ibn Umayr, again, his mother becomes very angry. She wants to hit him, but then she decides that no, I'm going to restrain him. So she basically makes him a prisoner in his own home. Yes, locks him up so he can't go to Dar al-Arqam. Time passes by. Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he finds out that the Muslims are going to migrate to Abyssinia. Yes, there's a place there, Najashi, there's a king who's going to look after them or give them a place to stay and worship their own God freely, etc. So Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he manages to escape and join the group of Muslims who migrate to Abyssinia. And he spends time in Abyssinia, etc. News came to the Muslims in Abyssinia that yes, Makkah is now accepted Islam. So they come back to Makkah. And of course the news was false. So Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he returns once again, a second time to Abyssinia. And obviously in Abyssinia there was security, there was peace, they had freedom to worship Allah, whereas Makkah was obviously very hostile. But of course their hearts were attached to Makkah. Yes, that's their home, that's where they're from. That's where they grew up. Everything they knew was Makkah. So eventually, obviously, they came back to Makkah. Now when Mus'ab ibn Umayr did come back, his mother now grabbed him again and said that, you've got one last chance. You either leave this way or we're finished. Yes, and actually she said that I'm going to restrain you again. Mus'ab ibn Umayr said this time that if you try to restrain me, then whoever you get to restrain me, then that's it. He won't be around anymore. I'm not going to accept it now. He was now firm. And this was the choice he had to make. His mother said that, if you carry on down this path, then we're finished. There's no relationship between me and you. And you have to think that Mus'ab ibn Umayr, of course, he loved his mother. Yes? This is his mother who, took care of him when he was a child, who gave him everything he had. But now she's saying that if you carry on in your Islam, then our relationship's finished. Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he tries one last time. He says, my dear mother, accept Islam. Realize there's only one deity worthy of worship. That is Allah, and that Muhammad is sent as a messenger. And, his mother replies that I swear by the shooting stars, I shall not enter your religion, even if my opinion is ridiculed and my mind becomes, I lose my mind basically. That I will never accept this religion. And again, here you learn that Mus'ab ibn Umayr, that must have been a very difficult decision for him to make. That now you have to make a choice. You turn your back on that life and that whole life has gone. Yes, and you think that you're used to living a certain way. You're used to affluence, you're used to everything you could ever want. Yes, a very nice life, a very cushy life. But now it's all going to change if you make this step. Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he decides that no, this is the truth, I'm going to follow this way. Even if I don't have anything, and I live a life of poverty, it doesn't matter. I have Islam. So Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he left, and he spent then the remaining days in Mecca with the Prophet ﷺ and accompanying him, and being in the khidmah of the Prophet ﷺ. And subhanAllah, one day, many years later, when the Prophet ﷺ was with Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he entered a gathering, and the Prophet ﷺ was sat with the companions. And when he entered the gathering, he had very shoddy clothes on, ripped clothes. He came in And the Prophet ﷺ began to cry. And the companions began to cry. They're looking at him, thinking that this was Mus'ab ibn Umayr. That when he would walk, you could smell his fragrance. He had the best of clothes, tailor-made clothes. He had these shoes, and now look at what his state is. Nice, and then Prophet ﷺ, when he passed away, he remembered this as well, his actual state. So, as I mentioned, he was with the Prophet ﷺ in Mecca. He looked after the Prophet ﷺ, accompanied him, etc. And then the time came, the Muslims, the Prophet ﷺ went to Ta'if, and the people rejected him and stoned him and whatnot. So he came back, and then the time came to send somebody to Medina. Now send somebody to Medina to go and teach the small group who had accepted Islam in Medina, teach them, get the people of Medina ready for the migration. The Prophet ﷺ, who does he choose? He chooses Mus'ab ibn Umayr. Mus'ab ibn Umayr at this time is 21, 22 years old, very young. And you think that there are many major companions that the Prophet ﷺ could have sent. Major companions. Yes, older than him, more experienced than him. But he sends Mus'ab ibn Umayr. Yes, and obviously there are reasons why he sent Mus'ab ibn Umayr. He gave this responsibility to a young man to go and get a whole city ready. To go and get a whole city ready for us to now migrate. To go and teach them their religion. He chooses Mus'ab ibn Umayr. And of course the scholars, they talk about this. What lessons can we learn from that? That subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ gives responsibility to the youth. Yes, he gives responsibility to the youth. That he's a young man, but he's going to take this responsibility. Today, subhanAllah, when it comes to the youth, we don't want to give any responsibility. You just about send them to Tesco to buy some milk, and you think, is this going to work out okay or not? No responsibility, no trust in the youth, you think it's too much. But here, subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us, no, give them responsibility. They might make mistakes. They might not do things exactly the way you want them to do it. But put that responsibility on them. Trust them, let them run initiatives. Even here, in our context in the UK, we should give youth, empower the youth. Yes, and obviously they need guidance, they need direction, but allow them, give them the opportunity. For too long, and we've always pushed youth to the side. And not obviously this must be much different. But you find in many of them said that the youth will not be given an opportunity to get involved, to run anything. But that's obviously against the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. So Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he goes to Medina, and now he spends time in Medina. And in Medina, he's the guest of Sa'd ibn Zurara. And he's in Mecca, in Medina, he's teaching some of the people, he's giving da'wah to the people. Some people are starting to accept Islam. They're learning about the religion, and he's going around to the different tribes and inviting them to Islam. One day he was sat with Sa'd, and they were sitting near an orchard of one of the clans. And there were a number of new Muslims that were with them, and one of the powerful, notable people from the Medinan society, he was Usayd ibn Khudayr. He came up to Mus'ab ibn Umayr, very angry. And as he was approaching Mus'ab ibn Umayr, Sa'd said to him that this is Usayd. If he accepts Islam, then whole clan will accept Islam. That this is going to be very good. So he comes, he's very angry. He says to Mus'ab ibn Umayr, that what is this? That you are turning people against our religion or our way. You are corrupting the weak amongst us. What's going on? Mus'ab ibn Umayr, when somebody's shouting at you, somebody's in a very aggressive manner, it's very easy to respond in the same way. Here you find that Mus'ab ibn Umayr, subhanallah, he keeps his cool. And in narrations it mentions that he smiles at Usayd. And he says to him that just sit down and listen. If you like what I hear, and you like my mission and what I'm here for, then accept it. And if you dislike it, then we'll stop telling you what to do, and you can leave. Then no problem. And very reasonable. So Usayd said, okay, that sounds fair. I'll sit down and listen to what he's got to say. And look, he did it with calmness. And this is one of the principles of da'wah, that when you give da'wah, you do it in a calm manner. Yes, if somebody's getting aggressive to you, you don't get aggressive back. Yes, you use hikmah, you use wisdom. And this is what Mus'ab ibn Umayr used. So he sat down. Mus'ab ibn Umayr began to do what? He began to recite the Quran to him. Yes, he began to recite verses of the Quran. And subhanAllah, Usayd's response was what? How beautiful are these words? How beautiful are these words that he's reciting? And how true are they? And then he asked, what does a person have to do to enter into this religion? This was the power of the Quran. When you hear the story of Umar, the power of the Quran. So he told him to have a bath, purify yourself, etc. And then he came and he took the testimony, he took the Shahada, he entered into Islam. And of course Usayd, he left and he gave da'wah to his clan. And this was the start of many Muslims then becoming, many of the Medinan people becoming Muslim. And the clan of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, then they came and they accepted Islam and they listened to Mus'ab ibn Umayr. And then the people said that if Usayd, ibn Khudayr and Sa'd ibn Mu'adh and Sa'd ibn Ubadah, if all of these chief people of Medina are accepting Islam, then this must be great. Then we should accept Islam as well. And this was all at the hands of who? Mus'ab ibn Umayr. All of this was at the hands of one man, Mus'ab ibn Umayr, who was giving da'wah to these people. And then the whole of these clans started to enter into Islam. And you find another lesson here is that the da'wah of Mus'ab ibn Umayr was very Quran centric. Yes, it was very much focused on the Quran. He didn't talk about much else, it was just the Quran. And today, if there's one thing that we've lost when it comes to the da'wah, is that we've moved away from the Quran and we focus on so many other things. That we don't see what is the Quran saying. Explain to people what this Quran is saying. Yes, and this will bring hearts to Islam. So many people, they will tell you, many if you meet, I've met many non-Muslims and they say actually the thing that brought me to Islam was the Quran. When I read the Quran, when I heard the Quran, when somebody explained the Quran, because this is the power of the Quran. So we should, in our da'wah, go back to the Quran and try to focus on the Quran when giving da'wah. So of course now the Medina society was ready. The Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina, and Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he then spent all those years with the Prophet ﷺ in Mecca, obviously firstly, and then in Medina, and giving da'wah to the people of Medina, and also helping the new Muslims. When all the Muhajirin came over, Mus'ab ibn Umayr played a great role there. And he was obviously, he was actually seen as one of the Ansar, to be honest, because he was supporting the Muhajirin when they came over. But of course he was a Muhajir. So he played a great role in getting that new community ready. And he obviously took part in the Battle of Badr. Yes? There's a very interesting incident after the Battle of Badr that's reported with regards to Mus'ab ibn Umayr, that after the battle, his brother was taken prisoner, by the Muslims. His brother was called Abu Aziz. So Mus'ab ibn Umayr after the battle is walking and he sees some of the companions have got his brother shackled. Abu Aziz. So Mus'ab, he says that, when he walks past him, he says, tie him firmly. Tie him firmly. For he has, his mother is a woman of great wealth and she'll pay well for him. So Abu Aziz, he looks at him and he says, I'm your brother. And what are you talking about? You should be saying, let him go and whatnot. You're saying, tie him and his mother will pay great money for him. And he says, subhanAllah, he makes a statement, he says, إِنَّهُ أَخِي دُونَكَ الْيَوْمِ, that actually today he is my brother. He is my brother, the Muslim is my brother. He gave priority to the relationship of brotherhood in Islam over the kinship of brotherhood, of blood relations. Yes, this was dearer to him, the relationship or the brotherhood of Islam. Radiallahu anhu. So the ending of Mus'ab ibn Umayr comes in the Battle of Uhud. Yes, we have all heard what happened in the Battle of Uhud, how the Prophet ﷺ commanded the archers to stay in their position. And of course, when they thought that the Muslims had won, they came down, etc. But in that battle, Mus'ab ibn Umayr was given the standard. Yes, given like the flag. And that was, of course an honor, that in the battle you were carrying the flag or the Muslim standard. And And you can see that, subhanAllah, it mentions that when he was fighting, he was side by side with the Prophet ﷺ. And he's fighting and he's in the battle and he's obviously has the standard in one hand. And then as they're coming for the Prophet ﷺ, he was at the forefront trying to protect him and fighting and whatnot. And he was stabbed. And he was, it mentions that in one hand he was stabbed with the hand that he had his sword. And he had the standard in his other hand, and then he was stabbed in the other hand, in the other arm. And then he tried to hold the standard with his body. He didn't want to let this drop. And then they say that obviously he was then attacked and many wounds were afflicted on him. And he, at that time he was repeating one ayah, that وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ. That he kept reciting that Muhammad is only a messenger. Messengers have passed away before him. And he was showing his attachment to the Prophet ﷺ, trying to tell the companions that he is a messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was eventually, of course, killed, martyred in the Battle of Uhud. And that was the ultimate sacrifice that he made, sacrificing his life for the Prophet ﷺ and for the religion of Islam. And he gave up everything. When you think about his story, he's somebody who gave it all up. And they say after the Battle of Uhud, when they were going around and looking at the bodies, the Prophet ﷺ came to the body of Mus'ab ibn Umayr, and he saw the wounds that he was afflicted with, and he began to cry. And then he mentioned again how this was the young man who I used to see in Mecca, walking around with affluence, and now they didn't even have a cloth that was big enough to cover him. When they covered his head, his feet would become exposed. When they covered his feet, his head would become exposed. So then the Prophet ﷺ, he said that cover his head and his feet with some leaves. And then the Prophet ﷺ, of course, he made dua for Mus'ab ibn Umayr, and he recited the ayah that among the believers are men who have been true to what they've pledged to Allah. And he recited this, and some of the ulama said that this was revealed with regards to Mus'ab ibn Umayr. That he was somebody who was true in his commitment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we learn, of course, many lessons from the life of Mus'ab ibn Umayr, but as I said right at the beginning, the greatest lesson we learn is the lesson of sacrifice. And when we reflect on that, we have to ask ourselves that we're not asked to make those kind of sacrifices that Mus'ab ibn Umayr was asked to make. Nobody is saying that here that you have to give up your wealth, that you have to give up your life, you have to give up all of these things to be a Muslim. No. And our sacrifices are much different. And maybe our sacrifice today is what? Is sacrificing our desires to establish Islam in our life. That's a sacrifice that we might have to make. Yes, we have desires to do certain things. SubhanAllah, our sacrifice today is praying our 5 daily salah. And this is things that we, should be doing. Sacrificing maybe what we love for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we can all reflect to that, relate to that in one aspect or another in our own lives. And we've all got our own challenges, we've all got our own difficulties or things that we're dealing with. But ultimately we need to take a lesson from the life of Mus'ab, that he was somebody who, once he realized his mission in life, he stuck to that mission. And once he realized why he was here, that was his main focus, that became his goal. And today, we don't have that goal. If we're honest with ourselves, and every single one of us can be, can question ourselves on this, that how much is that goal, at the forefront of my mind? How much is Jannah at the forefront of my mind? One of our teachers, he said that, we plan for everything in life. Yes? Everything in life, we have a plan for it. Whether it's going to university, whether it's a business we're going to set up, whether it's buying a house, whether it's any of these things. There's a plan there that we have in our minds. But how many of us have a plan to get to Jannah? Where's our plan? Where's our thinking? Is it just going to happen like that? We'll just think, no, we'll just do a bit of this and that. No, where's the actual plan? What am I doing in my life that's going to allow me to enter Jannah? And in taking stock. And it's very important that we take stock of ourselves. When somebody would say, حَاسِبُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ قَبْلَ أَن تُحَاسَبُوا, that take account of yourself before accounting is made upon you, before you are held to account. So we should follow in the footsteps of these people where they became very focused and very driven. Yes, they never forgot the end goal. That's not to say you can't become busy in in your lives, in terms of with your families and with work and trying to do well in your study. These are all things that every single one of us should be doing as a Muslim. It's required from us to work hard, yes, to provide for our families, to do the best in our fields. Of course, nobody's saying that. But the point is that we do not allow those things to cloud us from the ultimate goal and preparing for the ultimate goal. So that should always be in sight. That everything I'm doing, how is it going to allow me to eventually achieve Jannah? And that's something that, again, we should spend time thinking about and planning. And even as some of our teachers would say, that you should write things down. Help yourself to write something that this is what I need to do, this is what I don't need to do. Have some kind of plan. And again, when it comes to taking account of your daily deeds and actions, and this is recommended, this is what the Salaf would do, is at the end of the day, they would check, what did I do today? Yes, what kind of actions have I done? What mistakes did I make? Take account, see what I'm doing. But this was, of course, what we witnessed in the life of Mus'ab ibn Umayr. And that's pretty much what I wanted to cover today from his story and the lessons that we can learn. Have we got some time for questions? Yeah, so if there's any questions, inshallah.